Chief Minister Eva Lawler, Opposition Leader Finocchiaro, thank you for joining Stateline.
Thank you.
Absolute pleasure.
Chief Minister, we've heard from residents in Palmerston where crime and the rising cost of living is front of mind for many. You hold your seat of Drysdale with a slim margin. Are you worried that you could lose your seat at this election?
I'm always worried about my seat and that's why I've continued always to work hard for Palmerston. But since being elected Chief Minister, I've had a very strong focus on reducing crime and that's across the Northern Territory. And we've invested $570 million into police, so to have an additional 200 sworn police officers. But it's also the residential youth justice facilities that we've been able to put in place. So 3 out of the 4 we've been able to put in place in the short time that I've been Chief Minister as well. Last
month you conceded that your government had been driven by ideologies in some of its past decisions. What has made you say that?
I'm very much a centralist, and I'm a person, I'm old enough, I think, to be able to drive the Territory forward and make decisions based on the best interest of Territorians. So, whether that's unions, whether it's the left or right of politics, you don't see that with me. You see decisions that are based on the conversations I have with Territorians and in the best interest of Territorians.
Was your government's decision to allow alcohol bans to lapse in remote communities driven by such ideology? Your Deputy Chancey Paik went on the record calling the laws racist. Do you regret allowing those laws to lapse?
I think it was the wrong thing to do. My number one focus is making sure...
If it was the wrong thing to do, how can you have confidence in your deputy that he supported the alcohol bans to lapse and the social consequences that follow?
So I think it was the wrong thing to do, but I also understand the difficulties of such decisions, and they are tough decisions in the Northern Territory. They are not simple decisions.
Opposition Leader, we'll take it to you. If you become Chief Minister, what will you do with alcohol bans? Will you keep them in place or lift them?
We will absolutely keep them in place. We saw the carnage and destruction of people's lives when Labor failed to make people safe. It was a terrible 7 months where crime statistics went through the roof and alcohol abuse was rife right across the Territory. We can't afford to go back to that.
Your party is running hard on a platform of crime and community safety, promising to build new women's prisons if elected. What modelling are you relying on to know that building more prisons will work, given that we are the most incarcerated jurisdiction in the country?
Well, we want to drive down crime, and that's our main focus. And what we know right now is our prisons are bursting at the seam because Labor hasn't done the work.
But they are bursting at the seam, so why will more work?
Because we need more to put the people in. Currently, our watch houses right across the Territory are being used as correctional facilities instead of being used by police as watch houses.
Eva Lawler, your government changed the age of criminal responsibility from 10 to 12 years of age. Victoria has walked away from doing that.
Oh, they've walked away from 14.
Yeah, from 14. But was it a mistake for your government to increase it in the Territory?
No, it is the right thing to do. I absolutely understand that somebody who's had a vehicle stolen, a house broken into by a 10 or a 12-year-old, or a 10 or 11 or a 12-year-old, is angry about that. But you need to, and we need to as a government, to turn that child's life around so they don't become a super criminal and a long-term hardened criminal. And so that's the work that we're doing.
Leah Finocchiaro, you're promising to drop the age of criminal responsibility back to 10 if elected. What will this achieve, given that the drivers of youth crime are far deeper and arguably the result of incarceration?
Well, what we know right now is that young vulnerable people are falling through the cracks. Under Labor's changes of raising the age, it means young people under 12 can't be held responsible for their crimes, and that means they can't be put into diversion programs that are going to turn their life around.
But aren't we punishing the children when we as adults and the community as a whole should be held responsible?
Well, parents should be held responsible, and again, that's why there needs to be accountability in the system. So by lowering the age to 10, we're able to capture those young people early, work out what's going on at home, and that's also why we're taking youth justice out of Territory families. We need Territory families to be dealing with the care and protection of children.
The CLP holds 7 seats in Parliament. It needs to almost double that to form majority government. Many of the candidates that you're running in this election, they're relatively unknown and they're running in seats that you need to win. Are you taking a gamble?
Our team is an incredible group of people with the real world and government experience to be able to rebuild the Territory. We were overwhelmed by the number of people who put their hand up to serve their community. And so our team are out every day connecting with their community, fighting for a better territory.
Your party has lost 4 by-elections in the past 5 years. Is that an indication that your party is perhaps not connecting with voters on the ground?
We've been undertaking a rebuild process over the last 8 years, and we've learnt some lessons very hard. But what we have is a strong team of real-world people with the experience to change the territory for the better.
And if you don't win the election, what will it mean for you? Will you step down as opposition leader?
We're focused every day on the next 2 weeks and making sure that Territorians understand the choice ahead of them.
With all due respect, you haven't answered the question. If you don't win the election, will you step down as opposition leader?
Well, I'm not going to enter into hypotheticals. We've got a very big job ahead of us to make sure every Territorian understands the choice, and can they really afford another 4 years of Labor.
Chief Minister, the NT is facing staggering debt of $11 billion. Much of it has come under Labor. Why should Territorians trust that things are going to be different under you?
It is a tough job running the economy in the Northern Territory, and I mean, I'm the Treasurer as well in the Northern Territory, and I take that responsibility absolutely seriously. But you can't cut your way out of debt in the Territory. You have to, in the Territory with only 250,000 people, you have to work with the federal government to make sure that they continue to fund the Territory. That's also why we've had to have an onshore oil and gas industry. It would have been really easy for Labor to say, we won't have an onshore oil and gas industry, but we have to diversify our economy. We cannot see the boom-bust cycles that we saw after IMPEX.
But what do you say to people? Like, it's a very divisive issue in this community,
yes,
and it has been divisive for many years. What do you say to people who don't want fracking to go ahead?
I say to them that we also, none of us want to see our environment damaged. None of us want to see water or any of the issues or concerns they have. But what we will do is make sure that we continue to monitor, continue to invest in monitoring, making sure that the proponents follow their environment management plans, but say, yes, you can do ecologically sustainable development in the Northern Territory.
Opposition Leader, you're promising to cut payroll tax if elected. Labor says it will help big business. Will it?
We're very proud of making it easier to do business here in the Territory, and we know that small business is the engine room of our economy, representing over 98% of all businesses. And so by making sure that payroll tax is abolished for small business and lifting the threshold from 1.5 million to 2.5 million for all businesses will make us the most competitive payroll tax regime in the country, which will keep people here and attract people to move here.
But cutting payroll tax will mean millions of dollars less revenue for the Northern Territory each year. What efficiency measures do you have in mind, and will you rule out cutting the public service or selling off public assets like your party has done in the past to make up for the shortfall?
We've been really clear that we need a strong public service to deliver our reform agenda, and there will be no asset sales and no cuts. What we need to do is make the Territory a great place to live, work and invest again, and that means we have to change how things are being done.
Eva Lawler, one of your key promises is to expand free preschool hours across the Northern Territory. You've held the education portfolio, you've been in government for 2 terms. If this policy is so important to you, why haven't you done it sooner to help Territorians?
So this one around 4-year-old preschool and full-time preschool has been one that's been talked about at a national level for a while. So New South Wales and Victoria have done it, and I have been pushing for the federal government to do it across Australia. Do it across Australia, have it consistent across Australia. They haven't stepped forward on that, and so coming into an election I said, now's the time for us to be courageous, now's the time for us to commit to this.
Chief Minister, the former New South Wales Premier Dominic Perrottet in his farewell speech said that COVID vaccine mandates were a mistake. Given how divisive the mandates were in this community, if you're re-elected, will you commit to a review of your COVID response to see what went right and what could have been done better?
No, I won't. I don't believe in looking backwards around the issue of COVID. I think Territorians have all moved on around COVID. The decisions that were made at the time were decisions that were tough decisions that had to be made at that time. We had an outstanding response to COVID in the Territory. I don't think there is anything to be gained in looking back around the COVID response.
This month we've seen airfare prices out of Darwin to, say, Melbourne nudged close to $1,000 one way. Why is it, Eva Lawler, that after all of these years of Labor in government, airfare prices haven't come down?
Yeah, because we have virtually no control over airfares. Qantas and airlines are. It's up to them literally, and we have very, very little influence over that.
But how can you expect to grow the population? Your government has set an ambitious target to grow the population to 300,000 people by 2030. Experts say it's unlikely to happen. Yeah. How can you expect the population to grow if people can't afford to come up here or to leave?
So that's one of the really difficult issues for the Northern Territory, and as I said, you have to continue to work with Qantas, you have to continue to push to have cheaper airfares, but we've looked at, and I've looked at the work around how could government subsidise that, but it's a small amount of money that government could subsidise for an exceptional cost for the Territory. So we try to bring in incentives for, to reduce the cost of airlines, but the cost of airfares, but it is really difficult work, and one that we're getting no movement around with Qantas. It's really tough.
Leah Finocchiaro, what will you do if elected to help bring down the price of airfares?
We need to take control of this situation. It's never been this bad, and when you talk to long-term locals, they've never seen less flights in and out of the Territory, and these prices are through the roof, crippling our opportunities to reconnect with loved ones interstate or visit family overseas. And so what we've seen, in my view, is a dropping of the ball by a government that's had a really hands-off approach.
Chief Minister, sport comes with the Territory.
Yep.
Will you continue to fight for an NT AFL team, and what do you think it should be called?
So definitely we will continue to fight for an AFL team. It's we have a 10-year plan, so that's in place. But what would it be called? I'm the chair of the Buffaloes, so I'd have to say Buffaloes. So it'll be the Territory Buffaloes.
Opposition Leader, is an AFL team high on your agenda, or is the Northern Territory too broke for one?
I think every Territorian understands to get there, we've got to do some serious rebuilding. We've got to get our debt under control, crime under control, and get our economy and our population growing again. So that's our immediate focus, and it would be amazing if one day we could deliver on an AFL team.
Chief Minister Eva Lawler and Opposition Leader Leah Finocchiaro, thank you for speaking to Stateline.
Thank you, Eleni.
Thank you.